Hello and welcome to Freedom to Evolve, Securing the Backbone with Layer-1 Encryption and QKD. I'm Sean Buckley, Editor-in-Chief of Lightwave, and I'll be your moderator and host today. Just to let everybody know, this is the second webinar in our series with PacketLight, which is today's sponsor. Also, just a really quick reminder that we're going to be holding our final webinar in this series on November 12th, and that is called Freedom to Evolve, FlexGrid ROADM Strategies for Multi-Vendor Growth. Again, on Wednesday, November 12th at 11 o'clock Eastern Time. Also, you can go back and listen to the first webinar in the series, Freedom to Evolve AI-Ready Optical Transport from DCI to Long Haul, if you like. Let's get to today's webinar. During today's webinar, you're going to see how open standards-based optical systems make it possible to integrate encryption into multi-vendor environments, avoiding lock-in while meeting compliance requirements, FIPS, GDPR, and HIPAA. And our speaker today is Nino Shaptoshvili, Vice President of Sales. Oh, okay. Sorry. Thank you. Yep. Thank you. I'll get that pronunciation right. But before I hand off things to Nino, I want to just quickly review our webcast setup for those of you who may be joining us for the first time or for the first time in a long time. I'll start with the Ask a Question box you should see near the slide area. I invite you to feel free to ask questions at any time during this event today. Submit a question. Just click in that box, type in your question, and hit the send button. We'll address your questions after Nino has finished her presentation. Now, in the event that you run into a technical problem during the presentation, you can call for help via the Q&A tool. Just describe your problem. Hit the question submission button, and Milan, who is today's webcast technician, will be happy to help you out. Next, if you know someone that might benefit from seeing this webcast, or like I said, or the other elements of the series, or if you just want to revisit this presentation or the others yourself, the event will be available on demand from our webcast archive for the next several months. We'll send you an email with a link in the archive sometime the next day or so. You should feel free to forward to your coworkers, have them look at it as well. And the archive version, the webcast will be accessible from the webcast archive section of our website, which you can reach via our homepage at www.lightwaveonline.com. And with that, I'd like to begin our look at how to secure the backbone with Layer-1 encryption and QKD. Thank you. Nino, the floor is yours.
All right, great. Well, thank you so much, Sean, for the introduction, for having us. Greetings to everyone, and I really want to express our appreciation for joining us today and taking the time. I'm Nino Shaptoshvili, VP Sales at PacketLight Networks, and today with me is Yochai Shitrit. He's our Technical Director, and we'll be happy to answer questions after the presentation. Today, I want to speak to you about the cybersecurity risks that today's networks face, a topic very urgent and current, and how we can, what are the things we can do on physical layer on the optical equipment in order to abate these threats and these risks. So our data consumption is obvious that it's exponential. It's unstoppable. IDC projects global data creation to be hitting 175 zettabytes, an incomprehensible amount, and that's by end of this year, which is quite soon. And I'm confident that we won't stop there. And if we meet again in a year, I'm sure this number will be much, much larger. So with the data increase, we also see a huge surge in cyber attacks. Microsoft assesses that there are 600 million cyber attacks daily. And that includes criminal activity, political activity, and things like this. And each such cyber incident can cost up to close to $5 million to corporations and organizations. And again, this number is generated or estimated by IBM's breach report. So the need is absolutely there. And the costs that I described are not the only considerations. We have additional requirements and additional challenges. Firstly, let's look at regulatory compliance, right? So organizations, corporations, health, financial institutions, local and federal government entities, they're all regulated on how they must handle, store, and transport data. And such regulatory bodies such as HIPAA, SOX, PCI, and NIST put very strict guidelines on these organizations. In case of non-compliance, there are very heavy fines to be applied. So that's a huge consideration for companies. In addition, there are security threats that we face from outside and from within. An interesting fact that I came across lately is that Google reporting 5% of all initial security breaches are actually from within, from a company's own employees who actually aren't the employees, they're agents of foreign entities or even foreign companies. Additionally, we see increase in threats coming from our own supply chains, the vendors and suppliers that companies work with. We're so interdependent with each other and digitally connected that any event, any cyber event at any of our suppliers may very well jeopardize our own data security, of course, not to mention the operation hardships. And then the cryptography standards of today are completely challenged and taken to new levels by the rise of quantum computing. We see new types of cyber attacks that are at unimaginable speeds and capacities and bandwidth. The whole concept of harvest now, decrypt later, basically refers to the threat that hackers today are stealing information, encrypted information, and storing it to be decrypted later in 5 years, 10 years, actually, whenever the powerful quantum computers are able to decrypt today's cryptography. Therefore, making today's data also broken and available in the future. And this may be a future threat, but it really is, the foundation of it is today. So it's actual threat that we must face. So let's look at who are these who's affected by these security challenges and threats. Well, virtually everyone, across all industries, across all verticals. So starting with healthcare, with patient records, research information, imaging even, financial industries. It's whether banking, credit companies, trading entities, or any financial entity responsible for keeping and storing data. Attacks on such institutions can not only derail that same institution, but really can cause a global financial crisis. Next, we're looking at corporate governance, with companies' proprietary information, financial data, and intellectual property being at risk of being exposed or even held hostage for ransom. We've seen this happening more and more lately. Then if we look at critical infrastructure, such as electricity companies, utility, roads maintenance and authorities, public works, waterworks, these entities are also all at risk of unauthorized access and compromising their systems, and unauthorized takeover of the critical infrastructure. Data centers, with the rise of AI and the increase of data storage, data centers and AI model learning facilities, they're at high risk of being hacked and having information stolen out in the open, or etc. And of course, last but not least, government and public networks, always facing major threats from entities, criminal or political. So what do we do about this? Well, There has been a lot done. This diagram kind of shows 7 layers of network that we are all so familiar with. And for the last 25 years or more, IT industry has been providing new solutions at really abating the potential security risks at different network layers, but mainly focusing on network layers starting from layer 2. We're looking at MACsec, IPsec, application layer has been secured, specialized companies offering software solutions and sometimes even hardware solutions. But we're okay there. But what about the physical layer? What has been done on the physical layer? So did you know that actually with today's simple hand tools, hackers can tap physical fiber, stealing only a small amount of light, and just 1% of light can carry all the data transported on that fiber. So while we're vigilantly protecting all network layers, physical layer cannot be overlooked. It's like having an office building highly secured from the front, security guards from the front entrance, but completely open to whoever wants to walk in from the back door or the garage. So the security really must start from ground up. What do we do about ground up? This is actually applying layer 1 encryption, which actually ensures that the data is protected on the physical layer and all the way up through all the layers of the rest of the layers of the network. The network is protected from ground up. There are several advantages on this. The data is protected end to end. So even if the physical layer there is an attempt of tapping, even the data that could escape is encrypted and secured. So really, hackers don't really have anything. The data integrity is intact, link to link, and the latency of data transport over encrypted links are near zero, while maintaining full line rate throughput. This is very important. I'd like to demonstrate with a quick diagram. Many of you may have seen this, but this is a diagram shows encrypted layer 1 traffic as opposed to encrypted layer 2 or layer 3 traffic, which is IPsec and MACsec layer. And it shows the loss of throughput and performance degradation at these different layers. And as you can clearly see on layer 1, we really have the ultimate throughput and the lowest latency. Additionally, there are some other big advantages to layer 1 encryption. That is that we can encrypt all protocols. We can encrypt any protocol if it's Ethernet, fiber channel, SDH, video, or voice protocols. Any service type, any service rate can be protected separately or together, as opposed to only IP-based protection in the IP networks. Really, if we take a summary look on these advantages, layer 1 encryption is absolute must for all industries, all organizations to start building their secured environment. Now that we talked about that this is critical and it's crucial, let's talk about what are the components. So what do we do with layer 1 encryption? How does it really work? Well, I'm trying to simplify a very complex subject. In the next slide, we have more standards and different components, but let's focus on this information here. So there are 2 main components when we're talking about layer 1 encryption. One is the key generation and exchange, And the second is the encryption algorithm, which is actually using these keys, which have been generated by key exchange mechanism, to secure the link. Today, the widely accepted key exchange mechanism is Diffie-Hellman standard, and which communicates together with the algorithm that actually uses AES-256-GCM algorithm to actually encrypt the data. So if we look at this image of Alice and Bob, we have two points. Alice, Bob want to share information. In order for them to secure this information, each device or each party generates a secret key. These secret keys are then mixed together and communicated via public channels. And this is important, that it is the public channel that does the communication, although the secret key is then shared between the two parties. These methods are very much common and have been deployed for the last few years and are still considered to be very effective and very secure. They are standardized by leading authorities such as FIPS 140-3 in North America, and this is a standardization that actually is accepted worldwide in almost all countries. Then we have specialized ones such as GDPR for EU. Then we have common criteria, which is also certification accepted in EU and Australia. And then there are other countries and regions that have their own regional standardizations and certification bodies. But the important thing here to outline is that this is something that has been tested, proven that it is really working, it's encrypted, and these are the standards. So it's very good to, when you're looking to apply layer 1 encryption, you should be looking out for some of these certificates from your vendors. Okay, so as I mentioned, here next. So as I mentioned, there are more components to layer 1 encryption and a lot more standards and methodologies and things such as key derivative function, key establishment function, encryption algorithms, the management, the authentication, and so forth. And every component has its standardization. I'm not going to go through this table. It's quite complex, but we'll be happy to share with you if you are interested. Feel free to approach us through our website or email or afterwards. So as I mentioned, for the last, probably last decade, I will say, even today, Diffie-Hellman key exchange was and is considered very secure. It is kind of like a gold standard of all the key exchanges, and it's still accepted, very high even for top secret applications. However, with the rise of quantum computing, newer algorithms such as Shor's quantum algorithm are very much posing a threat. We're expecting that it may cause the effectiveness of Diffie-Hellman to disappear. So really, the security industry is looking into new ways of protecting for the threats of the future. And this is what brings us to quantum key distribution. So what is quantum key distribution, right? It's a better way to generate and exchange keys. But it's not that simple, actually. It takes the key generation and exchange of the secret keys to completely another level. It's using quantum mechanics, quantum computing, creating keys with photons on completely different principles, using the quantum principles such as Heisenberg principle and other principles pioneered in the mid-20th century. Currently, the main protocols for QKD are BB84 and E91, but as of certification bodies, it's still very new. in terms of the laboratories that would certify QKD encryption. So let's dive into in more detail how exactly generates keys and how it all works. So first of all, here also we have two parties, right? So we have Alice and we have Bob. And we do have two distinctly separate elements here. I would say even two distinctly separate hardware pieces. One is the key management entity, which is actually the QKD device, so to say. And at second level is the secured application entity, which is actually the device that communicates and transports the data between Alice and Bob. So the key management entity needs a dedicated line between the two devices in order for it to send photons which generate the identical lists of secret keys. And it also needs this dedicated channel or dedicated line for exchanging these IDs. This is the only responsibility the KME devices are taking. The secured application entities, which are actually the optical transport devices, whether it's transponders, the WDM equipment, they actually communicate and integrate with the key management entities. And based on the keys that the KMEs provide, then they transmit the data to each other. So let's look at even deeper how this happens. There are two main ways to implement QKD. One is with the dedicated dark fiber. So we have an example here with our own PacketLight devices. As I mentioned, the key generating entities, they need dedicated channels. So when we implement a dedicated dark fiber solution, then you need a dedicated dark fiber in addition to the dark fiber that you're using for transporting your data. So in this case, Alice communicates with Bob through a dedicated dark fiber running a Q channel over it. And Q channel effectively is basically a transport of photons that generate the secret identical list of keys, or identical list of secret keys, more correct to say. Then we have what's called dedicated wavelengths. In addition to dedicated fiber, we also have to transport what's called a clock. A clock is important so that all the devices are synchronized to milliseconds and even to real time, really. And this clock needs, it's also dedicated channel. In addition, we need a dedicated management channel, which usually is 1510 nanometer wavelength. But this is also something that is defined on your optical transport network, on your optical devices. So once Q channel transmits from Alice the photons to Bob, and let's say Alice wants to transmit information, data to Bob, then Alice communicates, or SCE, in this case, our device, 400G device, communicates with the QKD device to get the list of IDs, right? So list of secret IDs, not the keys, the IDs. Then this, the SCA communicates back to Bob and saying, okay, I have list of IDs. And in this case, Bob generates or has a request to KMEA in order to get the secret ID match, which are XORed. XORed is a mathematical mixing of bits terminology. So it kind of combines the Diffie-Hellman and the QKD. And that way it matches then with the SCEB. And this is how the information is decrypted and encrypted. And for sure, it requires additional hardware and additional dark fiber. The next alternative way how to implement QKD over your existing infrastructure or your optical fiber is by using the same dark fiber that your transport equipment is running on. So this is, one thing I meant to mention, just going back real quickly. In any case, the performance for a QKD secured optical line is currently limited. If we're talking about DWDM networks over thousands of kilometers, here we're limited to a 100-kilometer network with a dedicated fiber. So going back to the using same fiber connectivity, we still have additional QKD devices. They still require a dedicated channel in order to pass the Q channel. Again, the Q channel, as I mentioned, is photon transmission from Alice to Bob that generates identical list of secret keys. So it needs its own dedicated channel. Additionally, we have another dedicated channel for clock exchange to synchronize all the devices, and another dedicated channel for running the management at 1510 nanometers. And of course, then rest of the channels to transmit actual data. The same, so to say, the same dark fiber option is even more limited in distance and can work only up to 60 kilometers. I'm sure that the technology is evolving and these parameters will improve over time, probably very fast. But as of currently, these are the actual technical limitations. So really quickly to look over dark fiber, dedicated or same fiber. What are the advantages? So when you have dark fiber, you really get excellent security, very high security, very high performance, but you have higher cost because of the additional cost of dark fiber and limited scalability. On the other hand, when using the same fiber, you're saving money on the dark fiber, but your performance is lower, although your security is still very good. Performance lower, I mean the distance is lower, okay? Some other pain points of integrating QKD. So first and foremost, it's the noise signal. The quantum signals are very sensitive, they're weak, therefore they're very susceptible to noise within the fiber. Secondly, it's the wavelength planning. As I showed you, in different scenarios, you have additional 2 or 3 channels that you have to dedicate from your optical network to just this solution. Distance is limited. So as we saw, between 60 to 100 kilometers, that's currently the limitation. Of course, there is also some worry or concerns about classical data kind of being swamped by quantum signals, as well as cost and scalability. QKD requires additional equipment, additional resources, additional fiber. As of today, as I mentioned, quantum laboratories, quantum certification entities don't officially exist. There are some that are starting in Asia, but as of right now, it's still based on whatever FIPS provides. So as an entity, the important part is to start with layer 1 encryption. You have to have layer 1 encryption. But let's look at the advantages of moving this even higher to QKD. So first of all, layer 1 encryption is usually software key. So you don't need additional hardware. You don't need additional software, external server. Usually software is fully integrated with your optical equipment, with your DWDM equipment, and you have full certifications. As opposed to, as we saw just now, quantum QKD implementation requires additional hardware, additional resources. So you're dealing with 2-3 parties, third-party vendors, requires additional integration and no certification body. So advantages of Layer 1, it really provides the ground-up security for your network. And we highly recommend for across all industries for it to be implemented. It is easy to be deployed, easy to be managed, because as I said, it's integrated within your optical equipment. It's unlimited distance. It goes as far as your link. Very low latency and very cost effective, and much easier for rollout for metro and access environments. Of course, the biggest advantage of adding on top of the Layer 1, classical Layer 1 encryption on top of that QKD is preparing a more secured network that will stand against future quantum computing enabled security threats. We also reviewed how each of these work. Classical encryption, Layer 1 encryption is usually initiated by software key. Authentication happens port to port. It's fully integrated and certified, as opposed to more challenging integration with QKD devices. Many times, the WDM vendors already provide you integrated solution, but in many cases, you might have to do this on your own with the third-party QKD provider. So this kind of summarizes the QKD and Layer 1 encryption and QKD overview. So how do we as a company enter this? First of all, just a couple of words. PacketLight provides standard-based solutions, vendor-neutral approach into interoperability within your network. It doesn't matter on which layer. And really give you a pay-as-you-grow adapted solutions for today and for future growth, and integrated with already secured Layer 1 security software. Already you can apply it anytime. Very secure design. We have all the certifications, of course, and we'll be happy to talk more about it if you're interested further. As of today, PacketLight Networks is integrated with several QKD vendors, QKD partners, and these are IDQ, Toshiba, HIPAA, and NEC. There are more partners and more companies, and even more every day. They're starting new QKD companies. The important thing is that we already have this mechanism set up to communicate with other QKD devices. And this is what you want to look for in your vendors, is their readiness into having QKD implementation already coming with a solution, integrated solution, or their readiness to integrate other and newer solutions in the future. So, just to summarize, for strategic and business decisions, it's absolutely crucial to have Layer 1 encryption in addition to all the other encryption on other layers. This is in order to, first of all, abate the regulatory processes and be compliant, but most of all, of course, to secure your network, to gain your customers' trust and confidence. I can tell you every time I hear, oh, this hospital was hacked and this bank was hacked, me as a personal private individual, as a private customer of a hospital or bank, I feel a little betrayed, because I feel like I've lost a bit of confidence in that entity, in that organization. So this is very important to keep in mind, that your customers look at you as companies with trust and confidence, and they expect you to respect their privacy, whether it's a university or a bank, and of course to keep their data very safe. It also gives a competitive differentiator in regulated markets. And of course, you decrease hugely your legal and financial risk. As we saw before, each such attempt, each cybersecurity event can cost millions of dollars, and it's quite a big blow for any organization. And of course, final is to improve your operational efficiency and standardize across your network. So with this, I'd like to conclude my presentation. We, of course, as Sean mentioned, this is a second webinar in our webinar series, and I will be happy to invite you to our third webinar in this series, which will focus on FlexGrid ROADM strategies and deploying in the encrypted environment.
Great. Well, thanks, Nino. Some great stuff here. I'm going to kind of go back and forth some questions that came in, some of my own questions, having talked to PacketLight a couple times about this topic. You mentioned partnerships, and, I know that I've spoken to your CEO about this and all of you guys about this. I mean, how important is that, and how is that, just in general, that ecosystem evolving? I think you said something kind of interesting. Of course, you have people like Toshiba and NEC, some real established groups, but it seems to me like this is a kind of a growing, I guess, potential market segment. Give us a little overview of how that's evolving, and again, PacketLight being kind of a forward-thinking company. How are you evolving and working with those folks? Sorry, yeah.
Exactly. So this is really a great question, because we as a company foresaw the need of QKD even a few years back. So we started already talking with some of the companies that we work with today. They were startups 3 years ago. Today they're full-blown QKD companies, but 3 years ago they were just a professor and his assistant or something like this, trying to do something new. And this is so true. It's evolving market, and not only evolving, it's evolving very fast. So if a year ago we had only a handful of QKD vendors, today the number of vendors have doubled. So integration with QKD, as I mentioned, the QKD is a separate layer of hardware and software. So they're dedicated companies that this is their business, is to generate, to manufacture, and provide these solutions. And our goal is to be able to integrate with not only one or two or four, but to have a kind of integration possibility with many. And by doing the integration already with these 4 vendors, which I mentioned here on this slide, by IDQ, Toshiba, NEC, and HIPAA, we really have a wide coverage of all types of different QKD vendor technologies, and most importantly, have an open integration, so to say, API that allows us to add more vendors very easily and very quickly. Just to note that we already have deployed these integrated solutions for our customers. These are working solutions and highly popular, especially in Europe.
Great. I'm going to go back to kind of earlier in your presentation. You talked about the adoption of layer-1 encryption. I assume that more folks across different industries are looking at that more closely now, and looking to PacketLight to kind of help solve. Not solve, but like kind of go down that path. That's something I guess we didn't really think of in the past, but as we move towards quantum and all the bandwidth needs that we have. Yeah, if we could talk a little bit to that, how is that kind of evolving too? Yeah.
So as we saw, really, the security or protecting data on different application, different network layers has been around quite some time, but really physical security, implementing layer-1 encryption hasn't been so popular. We came out with our first software in about 13, 15 years ago, but the adoption was not so great, because I have max security, or I have IPsec, that's enough. So it's really in the last couple of years and going forward that there is a much bigger awareness that really the security must start from ground up. And this is why it was important for me to show layer 1 encryption implementation advantages, and then also tell our audience what it would involve to even make that more secure and prepare for the future. So it's really a good tendency. It's a good trend, because I believe that all organizations that have any network should have layer 1 encryption or require from their service providers to give them encrypted connectivity.
Great. Well, here's one from the audience, and this is probably a road you're going down already, but are you using an ETSI standard, particularly the ETSI GS014, to interact with the QKD systems from your partners? Yeah.
Yochai, you want to answer the technical question?
Great.
I cannot say that we specifically use this one. We use our API to deliver the files.
Okay. All right. Well, things are always evolving. Here's another question too. Is there a need to encrypt the Q channel also? I don't know if that sounds more technical, but I'm not sure if that. Yeah.
Well, intuitively, my answer is the Q channel only sends photons, so there's really no key exchange done on the Q channel. It's just on the photon layer, so there's really nothing to encrypt there. It cannot be hacked, so to say.
Okay, great. This is kind of a little bit forward-looking, but again, my curiosity when I do have conversations with PacketLight and others about quantum, as I'm still trying to learn about the topic. I mean, where are you just seeing in general, the vertical markets, just in general, that are trying to adopt this? I mean, I've heard about some financial industries, and healthcare potentially, maybe research and education, of course. But where are you guys seeing kind of the general hotspots, I guess, for this so far? Yeah.
So this is very interesting how it's evolved, because the initial demand really started from universities. And this was kind of strange because we got lots of requests for QKD and specifically for universities. So we have these deployed in universities in Europe. But lately, we've been seeing that these requirements coming out in tenders for banks, financial institutions. So they're the first, so to say, real world adopters. Not that universities aren't real world, but they're more using it for testing and
research,
for such purposes, research purposes. But more and more we're seeing, and not necessarily that they want to purchase it right now. Like they would say, the tender will be for optical equipment with layer 1 encryption, but with readiness and compliance for QKD integration down the road. So these requirements are already in the tenders for financial institutions and some government tenders as well.
I see. So they want to be ready for it when it comes, of course.
Yes.
And,
yes.
I know here in the U.S. some issues with the government. Yeah, no, I mean for sure. And government agencies are kind of like service providers anyway. They've got the big networks, and so a lot of it should. I guess it sounds like we're on the precipice of something interesting of moving forward. And you also mentioned. Sorry, go ahead. Sorry. Yep.
Just to add to the answer. Because implementing QKD is costly, right? As we spoke, it requires additional equipment. So companies are still careful about laying out all this revenue, so to say, but they want to be ready if they need to, that they can integrate in the future on their existing equipment. And this is really important to say that it can be done. It's absolutely acceptable to have layer 1 encryption today with your vendor. And then down the road, you add the QKD element. It's fully integratable.
Okay, so today I guess it's a cost issue and just trying to get familiarized with it. I guess that's kind of where we're at with a lot of other. Yeah, okay, that makes sense. I mean, in financial industries are very, it's a sensitive thing. You're handling. Sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
I just wanted to get back to the former to previous questions about the TGS 014. We are fully compliant. Sorry.
Okay,
my
no,
bad.
that sounds good. Great, great, no problem.
Great.
I'm just going to keep bopping around here to some other things you talked about that I find interesting. Coexistence, of course, that we could talk a little bit about that a little bit more. I mean, I assume that if I'm a PacketLight customer and I'm trying to like go through all, not the motions, but trying to undo my evaluation, I mean, you can help a customer that, again, in any industry, kind of figure that all out as well. Yeah, I know we're still
Oh,
pretty early in the
absolutely.
game. Yeah, okay.
Absolutely, absolutely. We really, as a company, provide full service in the pre-sale and the project definition stage, and really come to advise the customer, taking into account their regulatory requirements, their data throughput capacity, their growth and expansion plans. And according to this, we will advise them which way to go. Of course, the layer 1 encryption is a default. We definitely advise this for our customers, but also whether to go ahead and already implement one of these 4 or other QKD providers on top of the network.
Great. I mean,
So
I've seen some. Sorry, go ahead. Yep, no. Yep.
So definitely the audience can approach us either through our website, or we have several ways, email, etc. And we will be happy, our technical department and sales department will be happy to do this consultation. Usually it's in very good faith.
No, that sounds good. That's good to know, especially as people want to evaluate this type of next generation technology. Now, I mean, I've just kind of anecdotally seen, some interesting service providers, I'm not going to mention who, but some, kind of starting to roll out, secure quantum type services. I mean, I assume that, of course, PacketLight is in the midst of all that, but just in general, I mean, are you seeing that kind of starting to the wheels starting to
Yeah.
turn more? Yeah, just in general. Yeah.
Yes, this is another good point, Sean, because
Yeah.
the real adoption will start when the carriers start offering and adopting the QKD. So from the carrier's perspective, they provide the Ethernet connectivity, 100G or whatever, how many ever G you want, but it's the end customer's responsibility to take care of the encryption. So still many carriers don't even offer the encrypted link, or if they do, it's very expensive. But we have already done several tests and POCs with several of carriers, with several tier 1 carriers, with our equipment integrated with the QKD devices of 1 or 2 of the vendors. So we see that the carriers are starting to think into that direction. They are preparing their infrastructure to include these types of solutions. And this mainly comes from their customer demand. And their customers are the same financial institutions and data centers and hospitals and universities generally, who don't have their own dedicated fiber. They go to carriers to provide them service. So they go to carriers also for encryption and QKD. So the carriers, it's kind of like chicken and an egg. Is it going to be carrier offering it or the customer demanding it? So we see it goes both ways.
Interesting. So I just saw a couple more questions pop into the Q&A site here. Here's one that I was going to actually ask too, but what is the fundamental technical reason why the QKD links can only reach 60 to 100 kilometers? I mean, with everything in optical, people are always finding ways to extend distances, but just, I guess we could throw that out there. Yeah.
Yochai, you want to take this question?
Yeah.
So in general, the fact that currently all the other vendors can work either with 1310 nanometer or this causing the distance limitations that they have. So you cannot amplify this because you cannot have any involvement in the photonic layers, because this may destroy the transportation. So this is the real limitation that they can see.
Physical limitation, physical technical limitation.
Interesting. Yeah, well, like everything in optical, it's always developing. So
yes, like I said, I'm sure that these limitations will improve. And we did see them already improve from, if we compare 2 years ago, what was the limitation, which was kind of 2 years ago, if I remember correctly, 60 kilometers was for dedicated fiber. So we already went 40 kilometers forward. Slowly we're moving forward.
Keep ramping it up, just like, going from 10G to 40G and 100, and now we're in the
800,
range.
1.6
terabit, so we're just going to keep pushing the limits.
Yes.
I think you kind of answered this, but so there's no vendor lock-in with QKD. I mean, of course, PacketLight has, the 4 partners, and like you said, other partners for QKD. But I guess the question is, PacketLight would try to develop communications to other QKD devices. Again, it sounds to me like something that's in constant development, as you said. Some of these companies started out as startups as a professor's project at a university, and now are real companies.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I guess that's
absolutely. The most challenging was really to define the API, to define this connectivity between the devices. How is the Q channel communicated? How is the clock communicated? How the management, and opening our devices to accept these data feeds from the QKD devices. And so at this point, after being integrated with 4 different vendors, we're able and very easily can integrate with additional vendors if customer chooses another different than what I showed, another QKD provider. And this is a service we can do for our customers, obviously.
Okay. There's another one here. When deployed without QKD, what make exchange of keys for this PacketLight Layer-1 encryption is also resistant to a quantum threat? I'm just trying to read it. Yeah, if we could address that if I'm phrasing it the right way. Yeah.
Sure. So layer 1 encryption, which I call classical layer 1 encryption without the QKD, uses the Diffie-Hellman standard for key exchange, which is still very highly secured. It hasn't been hacked as of right now, and right, and it's still accepted for top secret transport and communication methods. I mean, defense and militaries of different many countries use this standard for communication. So it is still accepted. Now, the NIST standard and also Diffie-Hellman and other protocols are also developing, right? It's not like they're standing still. So there is OpenSSL and some other development strategies that will include elements that will protect against possible quantum threats. As of today, this is what we have. We have classical encryption plus the QKD with the extra devices. But in 2 to 3 years, it may be that everything is integrated into one secured software key and QKD and everything else. But that's in the future.
Okay, so more to come. Yeah,
I would like to emphasize here. So there are some solutions currently in the market for layer 1 encryption that involved with external server that doing the key exchange.
Yes.
The idea of our layer 1 solution that we are using a random number generator, which is also, let's say, somehow more secured way rather than external server. This keep also the communication all the time, because let's say that your server is down and there is no LAN connectivity between the boxes and the server. You may lose your key exchange, and with all the protocols that Nino mentioned before, with this random number generator, it's make it much more secure.
Great. So lots more to come. Okay, we'll probably take another question or two, and then we'll go to some rounding up. Is there any solution to propose to permit a service provider to monetize, yet another new acronym, KAS, Key as a Managed Service, to multiple end customers? for example, banks at the same time, I guess. Yeah.
Okay. So if I understand correctly, the question is if service provider can monetize encrypted solutions per customer.
Yeah.
And the answer is absolutely. At least on our devices, our encryption software allows encryption of per service or all the traffic going through the network. But the fact, not many vendors allow this, but the fact that we allow encrypting per port, which is per service, allows just imagine one device serves multiple customers, of course. So that allows for service provider to upsell and monetize this encryption as a premium service. And of course, then on top of it, QKD, if that is what customer wants. So absolutely, with our solutions, that is possible.
That's great. Great. It sounds like there's a lot to come. And I look forward to it. Yeah, look forward to having more conversations with PacketLight and the audience about this. Since we're getting kind of right up against the hour here, Nino, I'd like to just have you take a few minutes to maybe just give us some final thoughts as we close this second part of our series out. And again, I just want to remind everybody again that's here, we're going to have another webinar coming up on November 12th on FlexGrid ROADM strategies for multi-vendor growth on Wednesday, November 12th at 11 o'clock. But, Nino, I'd love to just have you just provide us with some just some final thoughts as we close out here. Yeah, if you could.
Well, Sean, we are in a really exciting era.
Yeah.
Things are changing. It's so dynamic, especially with the encryption, especially with the rise of quantum computing, with AI processing, with the huge data centers. We're really at the forefront of the future. And I really encourage our audience to keep current with the development of this industry, with the development of where the protection against online cybersecurity threats are going, and be knowledgeable because things are very, very fluid, things are changing, and new solutions to protect against threats are always coming out. So first of all, the good news is there is a solution already now and solution that is evolving. So this is really, really interesting and exciting. So I encourage, first of all, our audience to start with classical encryption and keep following up with the development.
Yeah, I look forward to hearing more as it all evolves. I mean, it's been an interesting ride, even just as an observer of this technology from various angles, including PacketLight, who I know is hard at work getting the job done. But thanks again to the audience, for joining us today on this really great topic and some great questions. I think this is really great, and thanks, Nino, for giving a great presentation, and your colleague for jumping in with some technical answers as well. But again, I just want to remind everybody, you can go back and listen to the first webinar in the series, Freedom to Evolve AI-Ready Optical Transport from DCI to Ultra Long Haul. This webinar will, of course, be available in the next few days to go back and review if you like, or pass on to your colleagues. And then, like I said, finally, we'll have our last one in the series on November 12th, Freedom to Evolve FlexGrid ROADM Strategies for Multi-Vendor Growth. But again, thanks to our sponsor, PacketLight, and the speakers and our audience today. I hope everybody has a great day, and thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.